news reached Kalan's ears in the quietest room of the Imperial Archives, a vaulted chamber of crystal and light suspended beneath the capital city's stratospheric membranes. The notices were only a line of cold text stamped across every holochannel, unidentified Terran vessels manifesting in the Oryx expanse. 17 minutes later, the reports added a name half-remembered from pre-conquest legends: Black Echo Fleet. Kalan felt a chill that belonged to no climate system. A century of silence. The scholars had insisted humanity's final breath had dissipated in the ruins of Sol. Yet here they were, emerging from a wormhole that Imperial cartographers had failed to detect, announcing their survival in volleys of cobalt plasma. From his balcony, Kalan could already see the city's orbital mirrors pivoting toward defense orientation, scattering sunlight across the sky in panicked reflection. He thought of the old murals his mentor had shown him. Eth cities swallowed in fire under the Empire's arrival. The defiant, upturned faces of humans who had refused to kneel even as spores of extinction rained upon them. Kalan, for all his training as a neutral keeper of memory, tasted a metallic guilt now. The Empire had written that chapter as a civic necessity. Pacification. The word never told how the Empire's generals had lingered in Earth's orbit until the last military beacon fell silent. It did not describe mothers smothering their children's coughs under concrete while atmosphere burned overhead. The archives held all of that, locked behind red seals. The Empire erased. Humanity remembered. 800,000 kilometers away, in the darkness where the Oryx expanse cut through folded space like a scar, Admiral Hanael Reyes stood on the bridge of the battle carrier Silence of Argos. The wormhole's mouth still glowed behind her, its edges crackling like the rim of a thundercloud. 22 ships, the surviving core of the Black Echo, hung in a dispersed delta pattern, drives powered down, all plates blackened with meta-absorbent paint. Reyes watched the tactical map blossom with enemy signatures even before the Illithine patrol flotilla fully comprehended what they were seeing. Their reaction was swift, disciplined, beautiful in its predictability. "Captain Sefu," Reyes said, her voice level despite the tremor she could feel in her own pulse. "Light them up." "Akari Sefu?" Commander of the stealth frigate Meridian's Wound, muted her grin. 94 separate targets received a micro-burrow drone each, drones that lodged under shield harmonics, then dispersed packets of polarized static. The effect was theatrical. Every Illithine sensor grid in the sector blinked, reset, and came back blind. A beat later, the Black Echo's main gun spoke. Vacuum flared blue as coherent lightning speared out, carving hulls with scalpel precision. 21 cruisers died without firing. The survivors scattered like insects under a boot they had never imagined could walk this space again. Reyes allowed herself the quietest exhale. The fleet had spent 96 years in the underflow currents of subquantum space, fleeing genocide, skimming the gravitational wake of dead suns to stay hidden. Children's lullabies aboard the refugee arks had been sung among warning klaxons. Lovers had married in the shadows of engine pylons. Entire generations had memorized star charts of a galaxy they had never seen. Everything, every sacrifice funneled toward this opening strike, and now the Empire's core cluster lay ahead. 13 worlds wrapped around the radiant belly of the star Lyran, its looping orbital elevators and sky rings the very symbols of Illithine invincibility. She touched her arm console. Broadcast. All across the enemy comms spectrum, a human voice rang out for the first time in 100 years. "We remember Earth. We remember the silence you gave us." The silence ends today. Within hours, the Black Echo scattered like broken glass through the inner system. They threaded magnetic railways, bounced gravity slings, hid behind the glare of solar collectors, always multiplying, always dividing, impossible to pin. Imperial admirals hurled entire defense matrices into pursuit, but found themselves fighting three-dimensional chess against ghosts. Every asteroid became a sniper perch, every maintenance shaft a corridor of knives. The Empire's home sky folded into a battlefield layered vertically. Orbital altitudes, atmospheric corridors, and subterranean passageways in megacities where saboteurs melted into crowds. On the third day, Section Sergeant Mara Velez, 54th Echo Marines, knelt beside a breach charge on the exterior plating of Skydome 8R, a kilometer-wide agriculture habitat above the planet Verin Prime. Blasting this module would starve 3 continents' collateral humanity, did not wish to inflict whatever the Empire had done. Instead, Mara planned to blow only the shunt vents, flooding the produce tiers with carbonic mist. Non-lethal, crippling. She set timers while local defense drones orbited intense spirals, still uncertain where the real threat lurked. Private Luku Chen, 19 years old, covered her from a little way off, eyes flicking between sensor feed and the drifting curvature of the planet below. He whispered, "Sarge, how long until they adapt?" "They already are," Mara answered, sealing the final charge. "Question is whether we stay unpredictable 1 minute longer than they do." Across Mara's visor scrolled command updates. Meridian's wound had slipped under Verin Prime's magnetosphere to plant subaqua transceivers in the planetary ocean. The destroyer Cutting Wind had inverted itself into the star's outer corona, harvesting plasma for a rail stream attack. Black Echo drones were rewriting traffic beacons so that Imperial troop transports translated coordinates wrong and leapt into vacuum thousands of kilometers adrift. A war measured not by bodies, but by seconds. Jean Riskel Tor, Supreme Commander of the Imperial Corps, addressed the High Throne by secure beam on day 5. "They are few," Tar insisted, "but they cut where we do not expect. It is a gardener's operation. They prune our communications, our food, our morale. We must strike their heart." "Do humans still have one?" the Empress asked coldly. "Find it." Tor's analysts traced pattern density, vector logic, cultural dispositional curves. They concluded that somewhere inside the debris fields of old mining moons, the Black Echo maintained a forward node command, supply, or at least a rally point. Tor dispatched the dreadnought Choir of Swords, escorted by 6 carriers and a net of corvette screens. To the Empire's relief, they found something, a cluster of jury-rigged habitats orbiting Yinth Minor, shimmering under feeble anti-rad shielding. Thermal scans identified thousands of life signs, many small, readings consistent with children. The choir prepared to open fire. Moments before the first macrolance could discharge, a human voice whispered on the dreadnought's own bridge speakers, as intimate as breath. "These are the children you missed in Saw. Will you finish the job?" It was Reyes. In that heartbeat of hesitation she counted on, a wave of null-mass torpedoes appeared, launched from the apparently empty volume behind the dreadnought. They punched through shield curvature, detonating in phased silence. When sound finally returned to the instruments, the Choir of Swords existed only as molten memory. News of the dreadnought's death flickered through the Empire's capital like a contagion. Riots kindled. Some citizens Kanat saw carried signs born out of nowhere, stylized earths, black stars, slogans in both Terran glyphs and Illithine script. Remembrance. How had humans contacted them? It did not matter. The meme had infected the public lattice. The notion that a force so brutally erased could rise again shook faith in Imperial destiny. So when the Empress mandated total planetary shield lockdown, Kalan chose treason. He removed his archivist's sigil and donned a technician's plain gray smock. In his hand, he clutched a portable spool of historical dead zones, footage of Earth's last stand, unredacted. He moved with the crowds funneling into subterranean chambers as orbital shields powered on. But near a maintenance bulkhead, he peeled off the flow and tapped a code he was never meant to know. The door sighed aside. Within its gloom, a Marine in obsidian armor waited, rifle low, visor reflecting emergency strobes, Section Sergeant Mara Velez. Their operation had been set in motion weeks before, relays preceded by human operatives disguised as migrant technicians. Kalen was the final key. He offered her the spool. "Proof?" he said. "Use it." Mara transmitted the files to command. Minutes later, every public holoscreen hijacked mid-propaganda, projecting the lost screams of Earth, the ships scouring oceans to salt, the Elithony cheering in amphitheaters, as Sol dimmed beneath weaponized muons. Children in the Empire watched in horror at what their grandparents had called a bloodless annexation. Mothers wept. Soldiers hesitated. That hesitation cracked the Empire's spine. Not everywhere, not all at once, but enough. Imperial Captain Thrisk Jurek, commanding the orbital fortress Luminous Hub, refused an order to bombard refugee sectors suspected of harboring humans. Several of his officers mutinied, tried to shoot him, were themselves gunned down by their peers. The fortress's guns fell silent. The gap in the Empire's orbital wall yawned like an open wound. Admiral Reyes sailed the silence of Argos through it and dropped into atmosphere. Perrier's hull kissed the winds above the Imperial capital, trailing a halo of ionization. At 5 kilometers altitude, she opened launch bays and disgorged a ribbon of drop pods, streaking toward the palace. Anti-air batteries snarled, but the pods were sheathed in ablative foam laced with nanophytes that assembled decoys mid-fall. Radar saw 100 targets. Only 10 were real. They punched through stained glass ceilings into throne corridors where golden light met muzzle flashes. Reyes herself descended last, not in command canopy, but cramped within a marine pod, armor locked, pulse roaring. She had sworn to look the Empress in the eyes. Landing thrusters fired. The pod split. She rolled, rose, rifle leveled, marble walls, murals of conquest, air smelling of ozone and crushed flowers. Echo Marines advanced in arrowhead formation. Kalen behind them, carrying nothing but a data slate in his shaken resolve. Outside, the capital sky was torn in layers. Dogfights at stratosphere, starships exchanging sun-bright lances in exosphere. Ground battles threading under geodesic domes. Civilians fled through maglev tunnels as power grids faltered. 3-dimensional war, each axis demanding attention, each altitude echoing another. Now in command uplink nets, Reyes heard her captains juggling coordinates. Meridian's wound had hacked the thermal regulators of the palace shields, forcing them to cycle and create an opening. Cutting wind was dueling 2 carriers above the cloud deck. The hospital ship Dawnweaver, unarmed, bright white, was pulling wounded from both sides into its triage halls. Perhaps that, more than anything, signaled humanity's return. They saved Imperials as readily as their own. In the throne chamber, antechambers of hollow brilliance gave way to a dais woven of living quartz. The Empress stood beside Gen. Tor, both armored in refulgent battleplate. Drones hovered like silver insects around them. The air trembled under mutual targeting systems. Reyes stepped forward until her boots clicked the inlaid cosmic map underfoot. The same map, she realized, that once displayed humanity's home system shaded gray. Labeled null. She lifted her visor. "End it," she said. "I will," the Empress promised, and gestured. Drones triggered. The firefight lasted 16 seconds. Plasma bolts cut arcs through the dais. Marines dropped into firing crouches. Tor raised a personal shield that deflected 2 rounds before a ricocheting bolt found his throat. The Empress was feeling quick, her gauntlet projecting monomolecular blades. She slashed a Marine's armor open, pivoted, aimed a wrist cannon until Callan stepped between her and Reyes. Arms wide, the data slate glowing, with the archival footage now known across every Imperial channel. "Look," he pleaded. She did, and in that heartbeat Reyes saw not contrition, but recognition. The Empress watched a younger version of herself, applauding Earth's destruction, eyes ablaze with ambition. For the first time, perhaps, she understood the echo of that moment. Her hand faltered. Reyes did not fire. Instead, she said, "You cannot erase what remembers itself." Marines secured the chamber. Outside, capital defenses sputtered. Fleet Command reported that 6 of 13 core worlds had declared ceasefire. 3 had proclaimed neutrality. 4 raged on under governors who swore loyalty to the dying hierarchy. The battle was not over, but the Empire's spine was broken. Reyes turned to Callan. "Broadcast surrender terms." "No," the Empress rasped. "You came for vengeance. Take it. Kill me and be done." Reyes holstered her rifle. "We came for history." She tapped her helmet. The palace holosystems flared alive with feeds from across Lyrnan space. Illithine farmers in fields, children in Skola courtyards, workers in slipyards, all witnessing the throne room. Reyes removed her gauntlet, extended a bare hand to the Empress. "Stand trial," she said. "Let your own people weigh truth." The Empress stared as if at a void. Slowly she lifted her gloved hand, powered down the wrist blades, and placed it in Reyes's palm. For a breath, the galaxy held still. News raced across the strata of war. The Empress captured. Core battle computers flashed yellow, then pale green. Subroutines recognizing a chain of command severed. High Admiralty fleets powered down weapon systems one by one. On Varen Prime, Maravellas stood atop Skydome 8R, watching starfighters turn nose upward and vanish into peace quarters. She felt lighter than when she first learned to walk in the refugee decks of Black Echo's arcs. Luca Chen spoke softly over squad channel. "Did we win?" "We survived," Mara answered. "Now we have to live with it." Above them, the Oryx Expanse wormhole still glimmered, an open door to wherever humanity might choose next. Yet Reyes ordered beacons placed, coordinates, transit rights, rescue corridors. "We are no longer ghosts," she told her captains. "We are neighbors." Weeks later, with tribunals convened and relief convoys threading through the repaired skylanes, Kalon toured the throne city with Reyes. They walked unguarded among markets where Terran speech mingled with Enlathine. Vendors offered roasted algae cakes beside Earth Sipal coffee brewed from seed stock long preserved on the Ark ships. A child tugged Callan's sleeve, asking if humans truly came from a blue planet that sang across the night. Callan pointed upward. Promoted to chief archivist by Provisional Council, he had chosen a new emblem, a circle half dark, half light, a planet remembered and reborn. "Might we fall as they did?" he asked Reyes quietly, glancing at banners depicting stylized wormholes now symbols of reconciliation. "Anyone can," she said. "That's why we write the truth. Memory is armor." In a sky no longer carved by weapons fire, the silence of Argos hovered, a silent promise and a reminder. Its hull still bore the echoes of exile, but polished panels now reflected two peoples rebuilding. Reyes looked at the children chasing mechanical fireflies under the gentle curve of reconstructed dome glass. She allowed herself, finally, to feel the weight sliding off her shoulders, to imagine Black Echo's name meeting not the void left by genocide, but the voice that answered back. Night settled. Stars emerged, old, bright, patient. Somewhere, light from Sol, the cradle humanity once feared lost forever, raced outward, unaware of what its children had become. Reyes stood beside Kalan on a balcony, overlooking the three-dimensional cityscape, tiers upon tiers of habitation shimmering like a spiral galaxy turned inside out. "We came through a wormhole," she murmured. "But the hardest journey is forward. Ready?" Kalan smiled, the gentle, uncertain smile of someone who has carried guilt for a lifetime and now sees a horizon. "Archive is ready," he said, and for the first time in a century, the night on the Empire's core world was filled with more than silence. It was filled with stories, spoken in two tongues, sung by voices once sworn enemy to the other, echoing across domes and sky bridges and open squares. The Black Echo fleet had arrived, not solely to avenge, but to insist that remembrance could be louder than war, stronger than empires, and warm enough to light the path home.